Carl Jung once said that the most devastating weapon against a narcissist isn't rage or revenge. It's an empath who finally says enough. What happened next shocked even Jung himself. According to Carl Jung, the renowned psychoanalyst who pioneered analytical psychology, there exists a profound psychological battle that few recognize but many experience, the dance between narcissists and empaths. Jung observed that narcissists don't fear those who fight back with anger, they fear those who wake up to the truth. What terrifies a narcissist more than confrontation? Jung discovered it's something far more devastating that happens in the empath's mind, a psychological shift that renders the narcissist's entire playbook useless. Jung noted that empaths possess an extraordinary capacity to feel what others cannot say. They detect emotional frequencies beyond words, making them both gifted and vulnerable. This heightened sensitivity doesn't just make them kind, it makes them prime targets for those who weaponize emotion to maintain control. The meeting of two personalities, Jung wrote, is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when that chemical reaction is toxic? When one personality seeks to consume rather than connect? Jung identified the exact moment when a narcissist realizes they've lost control, and it's not when you think. The narcissist senses it even before the empath fully understands what's happening. At first, Jung observed, the narcissist and empath appear perfectly matched. The narcissist craves admiration and validation. The empath lives to understand and heal. But this apparent symmetry masks a profound imbalance. The narcissist, Jung recognized, doesn't offer genuine connection, but a carefully constructed performance. A persona designed to extract rather than exchange. According to Jung, there's a devastating psychological trap that keeps empaths locked in narcissistic relationships for years. Breaking free requires confronting the most painful truth about yourself. What keeps the empath ensnared isn't naivety, Jung explained, but belief. Belief in redemption, in healing, in the transformative power of understanding. The empath stays because they're convinced there's something deeper to reach. Jung's critical insight was realizing that for the narcissist, the mask isn't concealing, the persona mask is the person. Jung discovered that narcissists have one specific fear that's more powerful than rejection or abandonment, and when an empath triggers this fear, everything changes. The awakening begins with inconsistencies, small cracks in the perfect facade, a lie without purpose, empathy absent when most needed. Jung observed that these moments accumulate like psychological evidence, eventually forcing the empath to question everything they believed about the relationship. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung wrote, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For the empath, awakening means confronting the painful reality that what they perceived as love was actually control. That realization isn't just uncomfortable, it's psychologically shattering. Jung identified a psychological transformation that happens in 3 distinct phases. The third phase is what makes empaths truly dangerous to narcissists, because it can't be manipulated. The first transformation Jung identified was emotional detachment, not indifference, but a profound psychological restructuring where the empath stops participating in the narcissist's reality. This isn't just about ending a relationship. It's about breaking free from conditioned patterns of self-sacrifice and emotional overinvestment. Jung recognized that narcissists don't just manipulate emotions, they shape identity. They create environments where the empath's worth is constantly questioned, measured against how well they meet the narcissist's shifting needs. Breaking this cycle requires the empath to confront their deepest fears about themselves. What Jung called the shadow work reveals why empaths struggle to leave narcissists, and it has nothing to do with love, it's about confronting the darkest truth about yourself. What you resist, Jung taught, persists. The empath must face what they've been avoiding, that their identity has become entangled with caretaking, fixing, and forgiving. The narcissist exploits this repeatedly because it works. But Jung saw that true liberation begins when the empath starts questioning internally. Why am I apologizing for their behavior? Why do I feel guilty for wanting space? Jung discovered that silence becomes a psychological weapon when wielded by an awakened empath. It's not what they say that terrifies the narcissist, it's what they stop saying. The second transformation is the power of non-reaction. Jung observed that narcissists require emotional counterpoints to function. They need someone to manipulate, to provoke, to control, because that's how they regulate their fractured sense of self. When an empath refuses to engage not out of spite but clarity, the narcissist faces psychological chaos. This silence, Jung noted, is not passive withdrawal, it's active rebellion. It communicates something devastating. You no longer have access to me. The narcissist, sensing this shift, typically escalates with guilt, charm, threats, or vulnerability. But if the empath holds firm, they discover something profound. Closure doesn't come from the narcissist, but from no longer needing anything from them. According to Jung, there's a specific moment when narcissists realize they've truly lost control, and it triggers their greatest fear. This happens when the empath does something the narcissist never expected. The third and most powerful transformation Jung identified was when the empath finds their authentic voice. Not the reactive voice that once scrambled to explain or defend, but an integrated voice speaking from clarity rather than fear. This voice names things as they are without seeking permission or validation. Jung understood the mythic power of naming. To name something is to define it, to place it within a coherent frame of meaning. When an empath says, "This was manipulation," or "This was not love," they're reclaiming authorship of their story. They're no longer living in the narrative written for them. Jung revealed that thriving after narcissistic abuse triggers something worse than rejection in the narcissist's psyche. It proves something they've desperately tried to deny their entire lives. The final transformation Jung observed was thriving, not merely surviving the abuse, but growing because of it, becoming something whole and integrated. This terrifies the narcissist because it reveals their worst fear. They were never the source of the empath's light. They were merely blocking it. Narcissists crave significance above all else, to be the main character in someone else's story. But when the empath thrives, Jung noted, that framework collapses. The narcissist becomes irrelevant, which for someone with a fragile ego is psychological annihilation. Jung identified the final psychological boundary that, once established, makes an empath completely immune to narcissistic manipulation forever. The thriving empath embodies what Jung called individuation, becoming fully oneself. They establish boundaries not as walls built from anger, but as frameworks built from self-respect. These boundaries aren't just protective, they're transformative. They invite growth and authentic connection rather than enmeshment and exhaustion. The most terrifying thing, Jung observed, is to accept oneself completely. For the empath who has endured narcissistic abuse, this acceptance means recognizing their worth beyond what they give to others. It means understanding that saying no is not rejection but preservation, that self-care is not selfishness but a prerequisite for genuine empathy. In his final analysis, Jung revealed why empaths who've overcome narcissistic abuse develop an unusual psychological power that extends far beyond the relationship itself. This transformation changes everything. In the end, Jung recognized that the most dangerous person to a narcissist isn't someone who fights back with similar tactics. It's the empath who has reclaimed themselves completely, who has made the unconscious conscious, integrated their shadow, and now lives from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness. This empath doesn't need to prove anything. Their very existence becomes evidence that the narcissist's game doesn't work forever, that manipulation has its limits, that freedom is possible. And that, according to Jung, is the ultimate victory. Not destruction of the other, but reconstruction of the self. Your boundaries, Jung might say, are not just limits. They are the architecture of your freedom. Build them wisely, maintain them fiercely, and watch as your life transforms from battleground into sanctuary. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.